Welcome to the Scale Model Podcast. In this podcast, we aim to entertain, inform, and promote the hobby of scale model kit building with interviews, reviews, and news about the hobby. The Scale Model Podcast is currently recorded bi-weekly and is available where your favorite podcasts are found, including iTunes, Google Play, and Stitcher, as well as our website at www.scalemodelpodcast.com. Let us know if you have any comments or suggestions at scalemodelpodcast@gmail.com or at our Facebook page at facebook.com/Scale Model Podcast. We also publish extra video content on our YouTube channel, and we also have a Patreon page at patreon.com/Scale Model Podcast. The money raised will be used to help offset web hosting and other costs. As the podcast grows, we hope to introduce giveaway and other bonuses to our Patreon supporters as a thank you for supporting the Scale Model Podcast. Welcome to the Scale Model Podcast, episode 33, sponsored by Goodman Models. My name is Stuart Clark, and instead of being in the vast depths of Goodman Industries, I'm back in my own home basement, deep in my cave, because we're having a little bit of a winter storm here. But I am joined by Skype by my good friend and co-host, cohort, whatever, co-conspirator, Anthony Goodman. How are you, sir?
I'm wonderful, Stu. How are you tonight?
Well, not bad, other than the little few audio problems we had before. But my furnace, the furnace just turned off in the cave.
You got to stay warm.
Got to stay warm. Well, having my coffee, and there might be a bit of Bailey's in the coffee too. It's been a
perfect.
Right, exactly.
Just what you need to start tackling all those technical issues.
Yeah, exactly. It's a good thing we weren't recording all the language going on, but we'll figure it out later.
Yep.
All right. So first, we want to thank our latest Patreon supporter, and you can contribute to us too by going to patreon.com/Scale Model Podcast. We always appreciate everyone's support, and this week's supporter is John Bonani.
John Bonani.
Bonani, yes, and he's he's actually also our listener mail, but we'll talk about that in a few minutes.
Yeah.
But John, we really appreciate your support. We're just going to start off with just a reminder. We're recording this on November 11th, which for many countries is Remembrance Day. So we just want to give Memorial Day. Whatever.
States, right?
Yep. We just want to give a shout out to all the veterans, all the currently active soldiers serving in the militaries and all that, and we thank you for your service.
Absolutely.
All right, so listener mail. So as I said, John, he said, recently subscribed to Patreon to support your podcast efforts, which I really enjoy. We've probably crossed paths at multiple shows in the past, been going to Heritage Con for several years. You've probably seen my posts on Facebook under JB Closet Modeler. Yes, I am familiar with that. Where I share photos from my bench and shows. Going back to the podcast, I enjoy the interviews and business analyst discussion on the scale model industry. That type of information is very hard to come by in the public forums. So thank you, John. We really appreciate that. We hope we continue to meet your needs and what you find interesting in that, and we'll go from there.
And I think the listeners should know too that that's really that's Stuart's forte. That was his whole kind of raison d'etre for the podcast, that he wanted to explore this, and it's something that isn't really talked about. We just talk about the latest kit or what we want, and so kudos to you, Stuart, for coming up with such an interesting concept.
And kudos to you as well for all the help you've given me. So, alrighty. So enough of the patting on each other's back. Let's get right to the news.
Okay, so right down to business. What's new in the world of scale models, Stuart?
Well, the last weekend we had Scale Model World in the UK. That is the UK equivalent of IPMS Nationals. The sales halls in that, I believe, cover quite a much larger area than NATS. I think they had 3 halls this year.
Wow.
And this is also a time where a lot of some manufacturers, particularly Airfix, will release some new announcements. They won't release their entire 2020 line, but they do always have something unique. And this year, they didn't disappoint. They are announcing a 1/72nd scale Avro Vulcan B2. This will be for a November 2020 release. This is one that's been on a lot of particularly UK modelers' wish lists for a while. Airfix has an older one, but it has issues. This one's an all-new tool. It looks pretty nice. They had a resin mock-up there at the show for people to drool over. Overall, it was very nice. Pardon me, I just sneezed. All right, anyway. So, yeah, that looks really, really good. And as always, Airfix has got quite a bit of coverage on it. They're showing some box art, what it looks like, some of the CAD drawings, stuff like that. So we have the link. So, again, it's scheduled for November 2020 next year.
What did you think of the pictures of the I guess the mock-up or whatever, the test shot?
Again, I'm no Vulcan expert, but it looks very, very nice. They've got quite a bit of detail in there. I remember when I was a kid, it would come to the air shows. I've been inside one.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Been inside one. It's a very unique, iconic aircraft. Holds the record for the world's longest bombing mission by distance. When a single Vulcan bombed Stanley Airfield during the Falkland War. After a very large and complex multiple air refueling operation. I think it was over 3,000 something miles.
Wild.
Yeah, so this is going to be good. I know a lot of people have been talking about it. So yeah, overall it's good. Now I just want to point out, as usual, anytime one of these announcements come out, and it is the nature of social media, the naysayers come out of the woodwork. Well, why didn't they have this? Why didn't they? Yeah. Folks, you got to realize Airfix is running a business, just like all the other manufacturers. They probably do a lot of studies by much smarter people than all of us to say, what's going to sell. And this is obviously something they realize. And yeah, this is an obvious one. There's been a lot of people wanting it. I know some people were hoping for a 148th, but frankly, that's getting kind of big. Yeah, that'd be just...
people need to realize too that it's those specialty kits, they're quite expensive, when you're...
Yep.
We're going to sell a fewer amount than kits that are sort of more accessible by virtue of price and size. But even at 72nd scale, the Vulcan's a huge bird, right?
That'll be a big aircraft. And people have to realize Airfix's holding company, Hornby, they're not out of the water financially yet either. So they're trying to do some sure things. The Hellcat apparently was very, very popular. People didn't expect that to, in some other areas of the world to sell as well, but it did. And again, I think we'll see the same thing. So the other thing they had someone build a scratch build model of HMS Queen Elizabeth. Now, HMS Queen Elizabeth is one of two modern aircraft carriers that the Royal Navy is either built or in the process of building. So HMS Queen Elizabeth was launched and it's in operation now. It was first put in operation last summer of 2018, and it operates helicopters and it also operates F-35s.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, pretty similar. Smaller carrier, similar to some of the other ones you may have seen in the Falklands War. It has a ski jump for the F-35s, just like they used to do for the Harriers and that. But there's been a lot of modelers saying, wouldn't it be great if they made a model of that? Well, they commissioned someone to build one, scratch build in 1/350th scale, and this thing's a monster. But again,
it's a generally large. It'd be large.
It is a big
modern ship.
It is a big aircraft carrier. Yeah, it's like having, how like Tamiya had the USS Enterprise in 1/350th scale.
Yeah,
a little bit smaller than that, but not by much.
It's the Queen Elizabeth.
Yeah, HMS Queen Elizabeth.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's an Elizabeth class aircraft carrier. So basically they've basically put a thing out saying, well, what do you think? Airfix now want to canvass the opinions of the model making public about possible production of a kit of the Queen Elizabeth class carriers. So they've invited people to basically comment. So they're telling people send your comments either via mail or to pr@hornby.com. I could certainly see two scales. I'd love to see a 700 and I'd love to see a 350th.
Yeah. I have some info here for you on the HMS Queen Elizabeth. The actual length is 280 meters.
Yeah.
And I guess it's supposed to be in service for 2020, so it must be done.
It's basically launched. Yeah, they did the testing, the initial test out, and that it's at sea now, but yeah, full on service because they're still getting some of the F-35s and stuff like that. And there's a second one, which is HMS Prince of Wales. So actually, the one they had here at the show was actually HMS Prince of Wales. They had the markings for that.
So the Queen Elizabeth is like the first ship, and apparently it's the largest and most powerful vessel ever constructed for the Royal Navy.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Very interesting.
Yeah. Capable, carrying up to 70 aircraft. She's named in honor of the first Queen Elizabeth, which was a World War I era super dreadnought, which was named after Queen Elizabeth I. So it's actually not named after the current queen. It's named after the original Queen Elizabeth. But she's designed to, operate, VTOL and STOL aircraft. So like I said, the F-35, as well as Merlin helicopters. They're also going to accommodate 250 Marines. So it's kind of like a assault ship / aircraft carrier. They're trying to do a bunch of things with it. Quite the thing. It's had some issues over the years. Something this complex, but yeah, it's currently in service, and they've done some flying trials and stuff like that. So yeah. They've whole bunch of different things. So we'll see what happens. But again, if you want to see something like this, make sure you let our friends at Airfix know.
What a world that we live in, right? Where now the end user, the customer, can now give feedback back to the producer instead of just you would, for years and years you just buy whatever's put out and sort of choose from the available things. Well, so it's kind of an interesting time. I think it's a
good thing because they can more directly get feedback without commissioning, polls and stuff like that, and that's good. But again, they still have to be careful because yes, there's, for example, whoever thought we'd see, several manufacturers making 1/32 scale Lancasters, for example. Or crazy, other ones we've talked about, like huge 1/32 scale bombers, and but again, these companies that do it, they know there's a market.
Yeah.
Very much so. All right, so let's move on. Ammo's got a bunch more new product. They have 7 new products. So some new books, new paints, a new solution box. So they've got a couple of books, German Tanks and Vehicles, 43 to 45, Volume 1, 250 pages, 400 photographs, 23 maps, 11 color profiles. You name it, it's probably in here. €35. Very good for the Panzer aficionados, for the armor guys. So quite a few pictures there, some very good detailed stuff, some servicing. Again, looks really good. Another good one is from their modeling school series. This is called Urban Dioramas. So this is a soft cover, 124 pages in full color with 450 high quality photographs, and €20. So yeah, basically how to make, urban towns, whether they're wrecked or not. And we've got a couple of members in our club that do a good job on this on their own. But for those of you who want to learn it, it shows here, and obviously they're using Ammo products, but you can substitute whatever works.
Yeah, you can elaborate for sure. This looks awesome. I think
step by step details. It's intended for both novice modelers and for those with more experience who want to hone their skills. Exactly, and it's basically all in one place. Moving on, they've got a set of French World War II aircraft colors for just over €9. So this is for French aircraft during World War II, including Free French and Vichy French. And we've also got a Panzer Crew figure painting set. So for you wanting to master your Panzer figures, that's one thing I do have to work on. I haven't, what's funny? I say I haven't done figures. I've done fantasy figures, but I haven't done like D&D, Dungeons and Dragons figures, but I just really haven't done German crew and like crews for my Panzers or tanks. I really ought to do that.
Like real world.
Yeah. I'll have to play with that. Next up is the solution book. Remember when you buy these solution kits, they always have a book included. So they released the World War II solution kit a couple of months ago for German light armor. So now you can buy the book separately. So in 4 different languages, just under €10. So yeah, the late solution book, 70 pages, how to apply the various effects and all that. And then they have a new solution box. This is a USAF Navy. It's kind of funny. When I first looked at it, I went, why does it say Navy? Oh, okay, U.S. Air Force, because it had an F-15 on the cover. Gray Fighter Solution Box. So it's basically for U.S., both Navy and Air Force, the modern air superiority gray scheme. So again, everything you need. So they've got, all the various ones you can do. So full schemes, how to do some of the camouflage, including the cockpit, stuff like that. So, 78 euros. So again, standard price, but again, you get all the bits, the various primers, oils, streaking material. So if you're basically just starting out, this is exactly what it is.
Sure.
Yeah. So this looks pretty awesome as well.
It does.
Yep, exactly. And of course, since I'm going to have to tell the listeners in advance, you might hear Anthony and I typing because of this setup we've got tonight. So our apologies in advance, because I can hear Anthony typing just a little. If I type, you'll really hear it. Okay, and then the latest issue of Weathering Magazine. Issue 28, they're already on. Wow. 4 seasons. So I think they're basically going how they all look in various tanks in different seasons.
Oh, man, that's awesome.
Yeah, so what they said is you will witness a modeling experiment involving the work of 4 authors' interpretation of the same kit in each of the 4 seasons. So they've taken a Panzer IV from Border Models, and they've asked 4 master modelers to come up with 4 different seasons for it.
Ah, okay. Yeah, that's really neat. I've been wanting to do some specific season stuff. This is really cool. Geez, I'm going to have to spend some money now.
See, there we go. Anthony's their best customer there at Ammo.
Man, Stuart, why are you showing me all this good stuff?
I know. In addition, the magazine, they also have this month how to paint a BF-109 fighter in the African desert, as well as...
That's the fatty.
Yep, a realistic... Yep, Falls Fury. So, some sort of mech.
That's a fatty from Votoms.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure it's called a fatty.
All right. They've also got how to do a Victor 3 submarine in the ice as well. That looks pretty cool.
Oh, that's neat.
Yeah. So those are all available from Ammo's website, so worth checking out. Next, we move on to the great mispronunciation, Atari, tomato, Atari.
I thought it was a Tallery.
I know our friends on the bench say it differently.
What did they say? Italeri?
Italeri, that's it. Yeah.
I'm not sure. We should call them and ask them. Put it on my list.
All right, that's the great debate. I know they've debated it too, so that's fine.
Yeah.
So they've got 6 kits to add. As we know, we already talked about that wonderful Alfa Romeo Monza last show in 1/12 scale. So they've got an M1 Abrams with crew, 1/35 scale for about 36 euros with 5 figures. 4 different versions available. Decal schemes, a little bit of, basic plastic screws. Looks like some anti-skid material, etc., etc. So that looks good. Next up is a F-18A Mark E of the Super Hornet, 1/48 scale. 3 different decal schemes. VFA 137, the Kestrels. VFA 195, the CAG aircraft for the Dambusters. Yes, there was a Dambuster squadron in the U.S.
Isn't it still around?
Oh, yeah.
It went for years. It started obviously during that particular mission, but it went on and on. No. Did all kinds of interesting stuff.
You know what's interesting? This is the U.S. squadron. There's a British squadron, the Dambusters.
Oh, I've seen.
Right. This is VFA 195. Yeah, this is VFA 195. There is a U.S. version. They call themselves the Dambusters.
It must be in honor of the British.
I would think so. They probably won't admit it, but And then VFA 14, the Top Hatters, which has been around for a long time. I remember building years ago an F-14 kit when they operated F-14s. So again, looks pretty nice. 48 scale.
Nice colors.
Yep. That's what's always nice. Okay, moving on. The Porsche 944S. This is in 1/24 scale, 29 euros. Nice looking little cabriolet or cabrio, little convertible. Looks like they got a couple of different ones. You can put it in a white, you can put it in a red. Bunch of decal schemes with different license plates. Basically, nice looking car. I remember we had a lot of 944s back in the early 80s and mid 90s. Some people liked them, some people didn't. But anyway. And then we have an F4M Phantom, the FG1 172nd scale, 26 euros. This includes the Royal Air Force from the Fleet Air Arm in 76. Also includes the RAF 111 Squadron from the International Air Tattoo in a decorative scheme, and then an operational one from 43 Squadron in 1977 in the traditional camo. So yeah, this will be interesting. I'll have to look up sometime if this is a repop or not. I've got the Airfix one, and I tell you, looking at this one has a lot less stencils. The Airfix ones has a whole sheet. Version. Yeah. This has the Rolls-Royce Merlin engines, probably, if I recall.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, they were built under license.
Such a great looking.
Oh,
such a great looking bird.
The Phantom is just people used to say the F4 Phantom, proof that put enough power behind it, even a brick will fly.
Yeah, that's great saying. I love it though. I think it's like, it's ugly in the right kind of way.
Oh, I know. I remember when we had these at the London Air Show when I was a kid and a little bit older. Yeah. And you'd have 3 or 4 of these things, and these things would just belch out the black smoke. You go, is that thing on fire? No, it's just a Phantom.
I do have one I have the a Vietnam era one to build with the Sundowner Squadron.
Oh yeah, right. I remember years ago. Yeah, I used to have that one, and that's one of the Navy ones. I remember years ago, I built the Monogram, and it's an old classic, 1/48 scale, in an Air Force one, and it was a fun build. It was very, there's a few other guys at the club that have built them, just beautiful. But yeah, just quite the aircraft. Still very highly in regards. A lot of people, a lot of fans still are out there of a certain age. So, they're still gonna,
included.
Yep, they're still going to make them. Okay, next up is 172nd scale, part of their War Game approved Warsaw Pact troops from the 1980s. So 48 troops of the Warsaw Pact in the 80s to fill out your Cold War diorama. And then, of course, if you have the Warsaw Pact in the 80s, you have to have NATO. So there's also NATO, and these are each about 10 euros a box for, I guess, wargaming purposes and stuff like that. So that's that from Italeri. Okay, moving on. Oh yes, this one, speaking of big kits. So HPH, as you know, they do a lot of big things. So they're actually in the middle. They're going to be they're in the middle of very soon. And again, they had it at Telford. They had a 1/48 scale. They're building a B-52. Okay, so 1/48 scale. Just imagine that for a second. How big that is. All right, you're
wow.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's pictures out there. So the other thing they announced, and it's on their website, in 3 or 4 weeks, we are going to release a B-52, just the cockpit section, in 1/32nd scale, 150 euros.
Wow.
But wait, there's a deal. It's only 120 euros when you order it together with the big 1/48 scale B-52. But you know what? Just like Wingnut Wings is talking about doing the cockpit of the Lank, I think this is a really good idea, because there's a lot of people who are fans of these aircraft and they'd love something that big, but they just don't have the room.
Yeah, or the budget. That's a very smart marketing move.
Yes.
To offer a piece of that will satisfy a miler on a budget, which is probably most people.
Yeah, because there's a lot of people that love doing the close-up, cockpit stuff, and this thing looks like it's going to be absolutely gorgeous. I can just imagine the photo etch.
Spend a lot of time working on the. The cockpit too.
Yeah, so that was another
satisfying.
Yeah, that was another Telford announcement. So that'll be that'll be interesting to see. But yeah, if you ever get a chance, definitely look up some pictures of that B-52 and 1/48 scale. It's like, again, you need like a pool table or something to display the darn thing. So. Also at Telford, and they're part of the SWS series, but the company's out of Japan, and I'm going to ask you for some help here. Is it Zuki Mura, you reckon?
Yeah.
Okay.
Zokemura?
Okay, so yeah.
Zokemura, I think.
Zokemura. Okay, so they do a lot of larger 132nd topics, a lot of Japanese, a lot of 48th too, but a lot of Japanese, a lot of unique stuff. So they had announced this, I think, last year. I remember talking about this, but the HS-129B2 was formally released and made available for pre-orders. Like, it got snapped up. People had pre-ordered it. This thing sold out apparently by 11 o'clock, not including pre-orders, the first day at Telford.
Really?
Yeah, so this is a twin-engine tank buster, basically. Used a lot in the desert and in Russia. And again, apparently these kits are known for very high-quality kits.
These are very top-end.
Very top-end, very large. So, like, you've got some German night fighters, some Japanese night fighters. Very good quality, apparently. So it was released. So hopefully they'll have enough in the standard channels. These aren't cheap, like £115 at Telford.
Yeah.
But again, you're getting a big kit.
So you're looking at, like, I guess double that.
About double and a bit. Yeah, about double and a bit for Canadian. But again, I hear the quality is very good. And the actual.
So these are all part of that SWS that you see is the Super Wing series.
Yeah,
so I wonder if they're
line.
just picking iconic airplanes.
They do a lot of iconic. They do what they like. So like, for example, you've got you've got a bunch of Phantoms in 148th. They seem to do a lot of like German night fighter stuff. And German, some, the HO-229 Horton. They've done a Mustang. I think basically, the guy that runs it is known as the Old Man. And yeah, he's, I get the impression he just does what he likes. So no, basically some really nice parts. You can get these all over the world. They've got quite a few, distributors and things like that. They also do a lot of basically what they call concept notes, so a lot of behind the scenes. So So for example, for let's say a Phantom, they've got 64-page all color, 1,000 yen.
Wow.
So what would that be? $10?
Maybe $12 or so.
$12, yeah.
$12 Canadian.
And apparently these are really good. So like they've got 128 pages, all color on the HE-219, and so all sorts of stuff like that too. They carry a lot of different things, but yeah, very high quality. They're known for. So yeah, and I do know that I saw that come through my Facebook feed quite a bit at Telford. People were really excited about that, and I know a few people I know pick them up. So it'll be interesting to see once some of them hit the actual build, they don't just end up in someone's stash. Okay, I found these ones. These ones are a little bit on a what's new. This is a company out of, I believe, the Ukraine called Micromir. And they do some various submarines, but they've got two, and I put in quotes here, early submarines. So the first one is considered the very first combat submarine, way back in 1775, the Turtle.
Oh, okay. Not the Civil War.
No, we're starting with the Turtle. That comes next.
Okay.
Yeah, there's two links there. So basically, back on September 6, 1776, Sergeant Lee piloted this submersible towards Admiral Richard Howe's flagship HMS Eagle, then moored off Governor's Island, and he was hoping to kind of, maneuver it in and put like a charge or something. In the end, it didn't really work, but he did try. But yeah, so this was the very first one, and it looks like something out of a Jules Verne book.
It sure does.
Yeah,
it's very fantastical.
Yeah, 135, but this actually existed. Okay, then we move on to the Civil War. So H.L. Hunley, Confederate sub. So this is a submarine in 131st scale, the Confederate States of America. So she was the first combat sub to sink a warship, USS Housatonic? Well, with a name like that, no wonder it sunk. Now, it wasn't completely submerged at the time, and following her attack, Successful was lost along with her crew before she can return to base. The Confederacy lost 21 crewmen in 3 sinkings of Hunley during her short career. Okay, you think after the first 2 times it sank, you think maybe they'd leave it there?
Try again,
I
Stu.
guess. So 1863, yeah. So originally sank in August 29th, 1863 during a test run, killing 5 members. Sank again October 15th, 1863, including the designer. And then it sank, and then the final one, 1864, it sank the Super War. So there we go. Oh yeah, and I remember this one now because it was they located it in 95 and they raised it in 2000. And it's now on display at the in North Charleston, South Carolina at their convention center on the Cooper River. So yeah, it's quite, but again, interesting, again, you could use it for your dioramas or whatever. It's a nice little bit of,
it's a very historical subject too, really.
Yeah. And look at the size of that. Like, even with 5 people, that'd be awfully crowded.
Oh, yeah. I mean, they were just figuring it out.
Oh, exactly. So, yeah, they've been around for a lot longer than people actually think. So, okay, moving on. I saw this in a couple of forums. This is, as we know, a couple of companies have come out with 148 scale F-104 starfighters, otherwise known as the missile with a man in it. That's what they called it. So Video Aviation, they're working on a starfighter resin starter set. So this will include the compressor and the power unit, because this was quite a unique little way to start up the J79 engine in this thing. So this particular one was used by the Italian Air Force, but it's a NATO standard anyway. So that worked out well. Let's see.
The Starfighter is when in our own backyard there we have the Hamilton, the Canadian Warplane Heritage Museum. Now they have a Starfighter mounted.
It's a
sort
gate
of
guard.
Upright.
Yeah, it's
outside.
a gate guardian. It's a gate guardian.
Yeah, gate guardian. Yeah, just outside. It's really amazing to see. But that's the Starfighter, correct?
Yep. I remember these at the London Air Show when I was a kid. Quite the noisy.
I don't think
I know I'm old.
Yeah. I don't think I've ever seen one fly, but that'd be pretty spectacular. I think.
Yep. So that's going to be that's going to be cool for people wanting to work on a diorama of that. So
that'd be great.
I thought I'd point that out. We also have something else. I believe again this was another Telford announcement again from Italeri. F-35B Lightning II. So this is the VTOL version. This is the version that will be flying with the RAF and Royal Navy on the
that's awesome.
Queen Elizabeth class carrier. So again, all new tooling, 1/72nd scale. Looks very nice. Again, I'm no expert on it, but it looks very, very nice.
Very cool.
Yep. Not a lot of details yet, but coming soon. That looks very nice. Yeah, I could see myself with one of those. Definitely. Okay, slowly getting through here. Ashima is producing a 1/700th HMS Cornwall. Part of the Waterline series, a very famous British heavy cruiser. That's expected to be released this month. So for the ship guys, and then also for the ship people, from Fujimi, thank you. They're producing a special version of the Akagi, which includes photo etch parts. So again, about $63.73 US out of Hobby Search.
Yeah,
includes the photo etch. Yeah, includes the photo etch, and 1/700. It's a good size. So basically, etch parts, wood deck seal. Masking sticker. So you can mask and do recreating the paint, such as the center white line, the landing sign, and anti-aircraft. So that's nice.
Yeah, so you get really in this kit. So you're paying, let's say, $70 US, but you're getting a multimedia kit with everything you need.
You get everything you need. Because that
is, like when you see it's 700 scale and you think, boy, $70. But then sometimes ship guys, as we know from our friends On the Bench, they have to go and buy all the aftermarket parts on their already expensive ship kit. So this is kind of nice. It's all together.
All together, yeah. It's kind of like some of the Edouard special editions you get, where they put
Yeah.
it all in at once. So, okay, moving on. This one, there's probably a few of these already out here, but this is AZ Models. They're coming out with the Spitfire Mark 9. This is a special version. This is the longest flight. So this is actually a real world thing. It's currently in progress. So they've got a couple of guys that are taking an older Spitfire Mark 9. They've repainted it, made her all nice and pretty, and she's flying around the world.
Cool.
Yeah, so they've been a bunch of different places already. She's already traveled 17,629 nautical miles, according to the flight tracker. So this kit's basically got the scheme you can do to make your own. And I'm sure there's other decal sets in that, but this one is everything together. The whole kit and everything in 1/72nd scale.
Cool.
So, yeah, very, very nice.
It's beautiful.
Oh, yeah, Spitfire is a gorgeous aircraft, as we know. Okay, and yes, then there's this one. I saw this too. I saw this separately, and then I saw our friends in the modeling news talked about it. This is Das Work. They've got a new 1/35th scale, and I'm not even going to try and pronounce that. I'll just say it's an SMK.
A Salven Maschinen Cannon.
Okay, we'll work on that. SMK.
I see machine cannon.
Yeah, 18 Type 2 in plastic. So this was an 8-barrel gun. It was based on 8.2 centimeter barrels. And this is an experiment. This was actually real world. They actually built this.
There was a prototype of this?
There's more than a prototype. So the idea was all 8 barrels were designed to fire simultaneously, sending an enormous amount of metal into the air. It would have been operated by a crew of 3 to 4 operators. And then, one guy would be firing. The other 3 were trying to keep up with the loading.
Loading?
So the problem was they had a real technological manufacturer problems. So it really didn't get too far. These guys have done some nice anti-aircraft guns before. And up until now, you could only get this in like resin or 3D. So again, if you're a fan of this sort of thing, this looks really nice based on the CAD drawings.
Very detailed, because they've included some of those drawings, and that's a good sign.
So
right?
basically, one's from the Rheinmetall test shooting range in 39, and then they've got a what if version from Berlin in 45. And they're hoping to get that out for Christmas. But again, I could see, some sci-fi, cyberpunk, whatever, steampunk, people using it for dioramas.
It's kind of a crazy. I like the what if idea, because they had all those weird flak towers in Berlin like towards the end, where they did all this sort of these really elaborate sort of feats of engineering. So it's on the top of that, I forget what they're called. Isn't it one? It's like a big giant.
Well, they basically
square.
built 4. There were 4 flak towers. They look like medieval towers, and I think a couple of them are still around. They were like fully enclosed, and the idea is they were used as shelters, heavily concrete reinforced. You can look them up on Wikipedia, but they were quite fearsome.
So one of these things would be on the top of those pillars.
You would have had these and 88s and who knows what else. In fact, I think their other one they built, their Trigun one of their previous releases was designed for that as well. But this looks really nice. Again, if you're into flak guns and that, this looks like just like something out of Games Workshop or something.
Yeah, it's a very kind of a unique subject too, and that. But it's real, which is very interesting. I've never heard of this before, but there are actual pictures of the.
It actually made it. I kind of had to think, and I remember, now that I'm thinking about it, I remember reading something about it years ago, but I'd completely forgotten about it.
So kind of an obscure subject today.
Very obscure, yeah. Okay, and just before we went to air, I was doing one last check, and I noticed our good friends at IPMS Ottawa, in particular Brian Latour, he mentioned this. This is an interesting little post. So some people may not be able to see the link, but basically he posts here a poster, and it said, interesting, apparently the EB Games in Ottawa had a build day this past Saturday. looks like a part of EB expansion into collectibles, action figures, etc. They're also getting into Star Wars and Gundam models. So I looked at EB Canada's site, and yeah, they got some Bandai kits. I don't know what the pricing's like, but again, interesting development, because again, you've got a company which, like EB Games, they used to make their money renting or buying and selling console games. Well, guess what? Most of those are going online now.
Yeah, just for our listeners to clarify, the EB is electronics boutique, and there's basically a video game shop that like just exclusively. So yeah, it's interesting.
So they're getting more into
marketing in different direction.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting. But I thought for our Canadian listeners, that's something interesting. And yeah, check out their website. They've got a few there with prices. Again, I didn't really have a chance to go through them, so I'm sure Anthony will let us know if the pricing is completely ridiculous or
Sure.
not. So there we go. Okay, and we're going to finish up with what's hot at ScaleMates. No big surprises. The Tamiya 48 scale Lightning, number 1. Oh, look what number 2 is. A certain Airfix Avro Vulcan.
How is that not number 1?
I'm
this
surprised.
came out last week.
I'm surprised.
Yeah,
they got a TBA date, but it is November 2020. They're hoping the Edouard Mustang, Airfix's Blackburn Buccaneer in 72nd scale. Ming's Sherman tank, the Jumbo, the Ford GT40. That's a nice looking kit too, I gotta tell you.
Yeah.
I keep looking at that and HK's 148 scale B17, the AMK Super Tomcat, and so on. So all sorts of goodies. Again, a lot of popular stuff being talked about, and some slightly older releases.
Mustangs.
Yeah, lots of Mustangs, lots of tanks. A good mix. So, yeah. So I don't know if there's anything else that really points there. Oh, the Dragon Apollo, the reissue of some of their Apollo 11 stuff. They got the lunar module mentioned there. Oh yeah, and here's our 2 centimeter, 8 gun monster. So yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah, all sorts. Now, what's neat is just below that one, there's one there that's a Lee Richards annular monoplane. I don't know if it's on yours or not, but that looks pretty
just
cool.
Looking for it.
Yeah, just below the Quad 8, or just do a search for Lee-Richards. It looks something like an experimental thing from probably like before the First World War.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's kind of wild. Okay, that's interesting. So, yeah.
Oh, I do see that. That is crazy looking.
Crazy looking? I love it.
Wow, very interesting.
So, that's all the news that's fit to print, or fit to display, fit to talk about, whatever. But,
sure.
But we also have a scoop. Anthony,
we do have scoops.
What's the scoop, Anthony?
What's the scoop? Well, I mean, I guess the Avro Vulcan might have been a scoop.
Yeah, but it was
but everybody knows.
Secret, yeah. Okay. But what's our scoop?
So I got another scoop for you.
Go for it.
So this comes from John Moscato from Moscato Hobby Models. I got a message from him the other day, and it reads like this. Hi, Anthony. Hope you're doing well. On Friday, November 8th, which is just past for us, I'll be posting the first of 3 teasers to my new Mecha project series, for which the full reveal will be on December 20th.
Yes.
This all follows the teaser project badges I had posted on October 13th, which we've included a picture of on our show notes. Yep. Keep your eyes peeled.
Yeah, this looks very mysterious. All I see there is Project Archangel and M-72B and then Gabriel.
So, and these are just these look like badges
for something.
Badges. Yeah, like military style badges. I have no idea what this is, but now thinking back when we interviewed John, he talked about drawing and creating his own sort of series, right? Designs, mecha suits, and other stuff like that. And so something new is coming. He's been a busy boy because he was our last.
He has. But he does some amazing things. Absolutely.
Oh, he really does.
Yeah, exactly.
And there have been. He did post up some new drawings working on the Quaid Loon Rao project that he's doing that we discussed last week. So that'll be neat to see some more drawings and things that actually maybe I'll post a link to that because it's quite. He actually I included some photos of sort of the process, like talking about working with Renshape, using his milling machine and his.
That was quite good.
Yeah,
gonna post that because it's really cool stuff to
that
kind of
was
see.
really neat behind the scenes and how he does that. Yeah, I meant to do that last night and I didn't. I don't know why. That was bad of me. But anyway.
I'll take care of that right now.
All right. He'll take care of that. Okay, so that's it. So now we're gonna pause for a little word from our sponsor. Oh yeah, hey, that's you. Wake up. Anthony.
No need to pause at all.
No need to pause at all. What's going on with Goodman Models?
Well, it's been a busy little bit. Still, unfortunately, waiting on new stock to come in. I guess that is the lot of the small time manufacturer.
Yes, indeed.
So, the end is nigh. I'm going to get that problem sorted out soon. I'm still running my sale on the factory seconds. So if anyone's looking for a set or individual blocks, they're half price if you want a factory second. And you can. I was just recently at Wheels and Wings in Toronto for a really cool Dave Brown seminar, and I found actually I had a chance to take a picture of the display of the Goodman Models Super Standing Blocks. So you can get sets and singles through Wheels and Wings, and they have a new website, so you can order them directly from them or pop into their shop.
Yep.
And of course, they're still in stock at FlexiFile, and you can visit alphaabrasives.com and Section 8 Hobbies in Buffalo. So, yep, check out any of those fine shops or goodmanmodels.com to get in on the sale or just get a regular set.
Awesome. There we go. And we thank them for their support of the podcast.
You're welcome.
All right. Very, very, very thank you a lot. Okay, on to our topic. So we had a great interview a couple of weeks ago. Anthony really scored a jackpot on this one. We managed to get Aaron Skinner. Aaron Skinner, for those few people that don't know, is Fine Scale Modeler's senior editor. And he's on a popular YouTube thing where every 2 weeks, him and co-host Elizabeth Nash go through some of the latest kits and review it, have a lot of fun there. It's a excellent channel, well worth the review, well worth not even for the kit reviews, but also
a lot of fun
for all the other malarkey that goes on with him and Elizabeth Nash. So yeah, he actually grew up in Australia. And building models since he was about 4 and stuff like that. So we had a great interview. So we're just going to go right into the interview. Here we go. And it's Stuart and Anthony back again at the interview section of the Scale Model podcast. And we have an absolutely very special guest this week. A person I've really wanted to have on the show for a while.
Yep.
And that is Aaron Skinner from Fine Scale Modeler. So Aaron's Fine Scale Modeler senior editor. He grew up in Australia and has been building models since he was about 4. And his grandfather helped him put together a race car of some kind. Well, his interest and productivity have varied over the years because of university and work. I know the feeling. He's always had something on the bench. He's been an editor at Fine Scale Modeler since 2006, helped create the new product rundown video series, and has written or edited several books for Comblash. I always screw that up. Combach. That's terrible. Sorry about that.
I should ask him. Did I actually say it right? Combach?
Yeah, Combach is right.
All right, Combach. My apologies.
Not a problem
there. Okay, welcome to the podcast, Aaron.
Well, glad to be here, guys.
All right, so we're gonna get right to it.
We'll launch into it.
Yeah.
So, and speaking of Combach, how did you get a job at Combach Publishing, and how did you get turned on to that opportunity in the way back distant past?
That's so long ago. I going way back, I've been a reader of Fine Scale since about 1987 when I discovered it in a hobby store in Brisbane, in Australia, when I was growing up there.
Wow.
And when I moved back to the States several years later, the first thing I did was get a subscription when I had an address, subscription to the magazine, and I've been reading it ever since. It's just always been part of my modeling experience. And I was in newspapers for about 12 years. I was a newspaper photographer, and I was getting to the point where I was getting a little burned out by that. And I happened to be on the Fine Scale website one afternoon, and I see the ad for associate editor. And I'm thinking, that might be a good opportunity. We were living in Arkansas at the time, so it was a little warmer. And for everybody to know my wife is from Texas, so she's used to Southern heat. And when I told her that I had my dream job had come up, and she goes, "Really? Where is it?" And I said, "Milwaukee, Wisconsin."
Oh dear.
She goes, "Really?" I said, "Yeah." She said, "You're shoveling the snow." So,
They have winter there, actual winter.
Well, that's in the end, that's actually a pretty good deal.
yes, yeah. So
Yeah.
it worked out okay, and so I came up. They interviewed me, decided they liked me for whatever reason, and I've been here ever since.
That's amazing. Did you have to bring in a model kit to show them that you were like the real business?
They asked for the editor at the time, Matt Usher, asked me to send him some photos of my work.
Wow.
So, and that was when I was working full time, so I didn't have as much new stuff to show. I just had a few things that I had done, but there was that.
Yeah.
Plus, I had to do like a writing test and all kinds of editing tests and all that kinds.
Yeah.
Typical.
The nitty gritty for actually being an editor. So,
Well, there you go.
Right.
That's really,
I know.
that's awesome.
Well, I think a lot of people don't realize how many different magazines they actually publish.
Oh yeah.
If you look at all, Model Railroader,
Yep.
Fine Scale Modeler.
All the specialty sort of subject-based
Yeah.
magazines or books, rather.
yeah, it's a fairly. I mean, it's a smaller publisher, but we do have a fairly good stable of magazines with Discover and Astronomy and those kind of things, as well as Model Railroaders, where it got started. Al Kalmbach, for whom the company is named, was a model railroader, and
Yes.
he wanted a magazine to do, so he did it, and that's
We
got started.
There we go.
Yep.
So that's actually a good segue. And I'm sure you've been asked this before, but what are some of the challenges you have in producing, what we consider a mainstream publication, especially in the age of the internet? Because, there are a lot of online only publications
Right.
that, many out there that feel that are equal to the quality of the traditional ones.
Sure, and it's print media, newspapers, magazines, obviously have been challenged by the presence of the internet and the gigantic wealth of information that can be transmitted that way.
Mhm.
So that's obviously a challenge to compete in a different way with a different medium. And obviously, we do things like New Product Rundown as a way of being competitive in that space.
Yeah.
The other thing that I think is challenging for us in particular is that with the rise of the internet and internet retailing in particular, the hobby stores have shrunk.
Yes.
The number of brick and mortar stores is just down by leaps and bounds from where it was.
Yeah.
When I was growing up, we had 4 or 5 good ones in town, and now you're lucky if there's one good one.
Wow. Yeah.
And some places it's Michael's or Hobby Lobby or nothing. So
Right.
Yeah.
kind of stuck that way, and that also means that because that was that's always been one of Fine Scale Modeler's primary ways of getting in front of people is at hobby stores.
Mhm.
Yes.
And
Yep.
if there are fewer hobby stores, it means there's fewer places for people to see us, and so that becomes a challenge also. But we're holding our own. We continue to do what I think we've always done as a magazine, and that is to present good how-to information, solid how-to information that we hope makes the readers see something different or try something different and make each model that they do better than the last one.
Mhm.
And obviously there's plenty of other people out there doing that. The information on the internet gives you many more ways of looking at material.
Yeah.
But we want to be I think Fine Scale Modeler really wants to be a cheerleader for the hobby in general. We always want to be out there talking about how great this is and making people enthusiastic about doing the hobby. So
Yeah, absolutely. I have to say I have I have issues that I got when I was a kid that I still take them out and they're kind of treasured in my collection and
Sure.
it's really neat to go back and read some of the stuff and
that is one of the things that we hear from when we're at a show or somebody calls us or emails us. They will tell us they can pin down exactly when they started reading, and for a lot of people it's the first issue or the pilot issue going back to 1982, and they have every issue since then.
Right.
yeah. I wish I had an issue, but
but a lot of people do that. That one's a rarity these days. It's we don't have any left in the building besides the few copies we each have for our bound volumes. So
yeah.
Yeah.
But
Awesome.
it is one of the things I think that says a lot about what the magazine means to people is that they hold on to that physical magazine. They want that physical magazine. So.
Yeah. Are you seeing any kind of? I actually had two follow-up questions for you.
Yeah.
Are you at this period in time, maybe the last couple of years, are you seeing kind of more of a not nostalgic, but a resurgence in a love of the paper magazine at all, or is it still kind of really a fight with that kind of internet screen time for people's attention? Because I know I still love the books.
Sure, and I think that's the one thing that me personally, and maybe it's just a generational thing, but I spend most of my day in front of computers, and the last thing I want to do when I go home is pick up another one and read. So I like having a book or a magazine to read.
Yeah, I just like looking the way you can look back at it. You can digest it at your own pace. Whereas if you're watching a video and like, what'd that guy say? Or he skips a step and you're like, rewinding. It's a different experience. And obviously it's been there from the beginning.
And so, I think we're seeing, particularly out of Europe, like if you look at some of the stuff we're covering, companies like AK and Ammo and places, they're just producing books upon books every day.
There's always been good books.
Yeah, there seems to be. So I'm wondering, and that's also wondering if that's more of let's say a regional thing, like more European, or have you noticed that in North America?
I think one of the things that I notice, and it may just be me seeing something that's not really there because I don't get to go everywhere, but it seems like modeling is bigger in terms of just like a proportion of the population in Europe than it is here.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
It seems like there are more larger shows, and that's not to take anything away from what is happening here. I just think that as a per capita. On a per capita basis, I think you see modeling is bigger there. I think it's bigger in Japan.
Yes.
Yeah. I'd love to get a view of what the modeling world is like in China. There's so many companies coming out of there, and we'd all dream about getting 1% of that population to read a magazine or to buy our model kits. So.
Yeah, I know Anthony's spent some time in Japan, so he's a bit familiar with that. It's been interesting when we've talked to people about the scene over there, particularly in terms of some of the sales numbers and stuff like that, how a lot of people, for example, don't realize how big, when Bandai releases a new Gundam kit, about what sort of numbers they're throwing out compared to something here. And it's a fascinating thing. And that's one area I've always tried to do with this podcast. I'm fascinated with the whole industry behind it because it is, as you say, I think it is a bit of a challenge.
Yeah, and probably always in flux.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I think it's always changing, and I think what we're seeing is different trends. And you mentioned Gundam, and I think that's one of the things that it's hard to sort of wrap your head around how enormous that side of the hobby can be without getting first contact with it. We have a local hobby town here, and they have a whole wall of Bandai. It's not just Gundam, it's mostly Gundam, but they have some of the Star Wars stuff and some of the Star Blazers and that sort of thing.
Right.
But she tells me that she has a hard time keeping that stuff in because people will come in and buy it, several kits at a time because that's what they love doing.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. They've got it worked out.
Yeah, and I think I think we're generally seeing the same thing here too. There seems to be, you are getting younger modelers, but also time goes by. Like the Second World War is, over 70 years now.
Right.
And I think, and I've noticed the same thing because I follow a little bit of model railroading. You're finding that the guys that are into model railroading, instead of buying the steam engines or, the big boys and stuff like that, they're buying the modern stuff that they're seeing, that they're actually seeing today. And I think it's somewhat the same thing for real life subjects, or they are buying what's on the TV.
Right. I think, for anybody that's been born in this millennium, it's their contact with World War II is going to be books or movies. It's it's rarer and rarer that they're going to even know somebody who a father or a grandfather or an uncle or a family friend that was there at the time. Where for my generation, it was our fathers and grandfathers who were there.
Well, you had that immediate
like
Right.
contact, right?
And I
the
think
stories
this is where organizations and that have to kind of realize that, you know, the hobby's not dying. Like we've heard for 40 years, both in model railroading, in traditional model kit, everyone says the hobby's dying. I always say it's changing and it's
Right.
evolving.
yeah.
I would think dying is the last thing it's doing, and I would say that based just on the sheer volume of subject matter and kits that we're getting today. I would never have dreamed, 40 years ago. I'm aging myself now. 35 years ago, when I was
Good save.
perusing the shelves at the Toy World Ninja Pilly Shopping Center, which was filled at the time with Matchbox and Airfix kits.
Ah, yes.
That you guys probably know what Matchbox is.
I know what I do. I'm of that similar genre, being from England. So yeah, Matchbox.
I've heard of the legend.
Yeah, we have to every so often. I have to educate the lad here, Aaron.
That's fine. And Matchbox had its good points and its bad points.
Oh
but
yeah.
The who would have dreamed we'd have not just one but two 32nd scale Lancasters to choose from?
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I mean, it was a big surprise when, to me, it had a 48 scale Lancaster. It's really?
Yeah.
I mean, there was a time when Airfix had the only 72nd scale B29 on the market, and now, there's several to choose from. So we're getting kits of vehicles and aircraft and stuff that we could only have dreamed of having.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So many Grail kits or Grail subjects have been kitted.
I think it's also interesting that you're seeing a resurgence like Atlantis.
Right.
Yeah. Producing some of those really old ones. And like you were saying Matchbox, like Revell has those molds now. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if you guys recently reviewed one of them, but I think it was the Puma or something, but something again had the Matchbox mold 176.
Right.
And yeah, it's, I remember I cut my teeth on those years ago.
Right. And I think, I think nostalgia plays into this to a degree. And obviously we all like to return to the things that we remember. Sometimes we realize why we don't remember them as fondly as we wanted to.
Exactly.
But there is that end of the market. And I think we all want, I for years wanted the old Matchbox 72nd scale Walrus, the Supermarine Walrus.
Yes.
Because it was a kit that I had started building with my dad, and he tripped carrying what we had almost finished one night, and it rekitted itself in ways that you can't fix. So I never finished one. So imagine my surprise when Airfix brings out a 48 scale one, which is my preferred scale with Australian markings, which is my preferred subject matter. So hey,
exactly,
all is much better in the world.
All is well, and you can get a catapult rig for that too, and aftermarket, and all sorts of goodies for it. Yes,
it's amazing what is available, and I think anyone that says the hobby is dying they're not seeing. I think what they're seeing is that there aren't tens of thousands of kids building models.
I think that's the big thing, and we've brought that up in the past too. Yeah. You used to get the models at the local drugstore, or exactly, or the news agents, and in our case, being in England and Australia.
Yeah, exactly.
But interestingly, that I mean, as of 10 years ago, that was still happening in Japan.
Yeah,
I could get off at the station and go to the convenience vendor and get a coffee in a can, and they had just a handful of model kits, but they always had the latest Gundam coming out.
Handy for building on the bullet train. All right, let's get to our next question, Anthony.
Okay, well, so speaking of your preferred subject, how has your personal modeling style changed since being on the inside and seeing things from the industry side?
That's an interesting question. I'm not sure if I'd say it's changed necessarily.
Yeah.
I've gotten quicker of necessity because deadlines make you have to do things in a different way. Mm-hmm. And I have much more practice now than I had for a long time.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
And then there's perhaps the greatest challenge, if you will, if you start doing writing about modeling as a job, is that or even as a part-time gig, you have to start working out how to integrate photography into the process.
Yes.
Which is when you start doing it the first time, it's like, oh, this is such a big interruption. I'm on such a roll here on the workbench, but I got to turn around and make sure I get a photograph of this step, or the story's not going to be what I need it to be.
Right.
So I've gotten much better about doing that. I think the greatest thing anymore is that I get a chance to try things I might not otherwise try.
Oh,
because
cool.
I'm constantly getting new ideas and new techniques from either stories that are submitted or stories that I'm seeing online as I'm doing research and that sort of thing. And it's like, hey, that sounds like a good idea. I might try that, or I might try this. And it's a chance to use particularly like a review model as a canvas to try something I might not otherwise try on that thing I'm hoping to, enter a contest. Because if it gets, messed up, I'm not going to be in trouble.
Yeah.
Right.
So it almost seems like you've managed a way to kind of take the pressure off yourself.
Yeah.
In a way.
In a way, yeah.
In a way.
Let's talk on a deadline week and see what the pressure's like.
Oh, okay. Well, it's a pressure cooker.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, so we were talking a little bit about social media earlier, and before we went to air. So how is you now have people see your face and Elizabeth Nash's face and that with your bike
is what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
I have fans.
Fans, yeah. So how has it changed your relationship with the modeling public? Do you find yourself being recognized more? And I just wanted to kind of say, when you're dealing with people who recognize you, do you notice, and maybe we can talk a bit in general, do you notice that there are the people that tend to recognize you from the YouTube and that tend to be younger faces?
Yes and no. It's a fairly wide variety of people. I think we've managed to get a lot of people looking at the YouTube page plus our own, because we have a version of it that runs on our website as well.
Okay.
So I think we're putting it out with the newsletter that everybody gets in their email. So I think a lot of people are starting to look at it, and they're starting to realize we do that. And I think they find, like I said earlier, we have fun doing it, and I think they find that idea that we're having fun talking about it kind of infectious, and it gets them
absolutely
to at least want to watch on, and the core of it's always going to be the information that we're trying to give you about the kits, but let's be a little goofy. Let's not take ourselves too seriously. I was born not taking myself very seriously. In the immortal words of a friend, I have a face made for radio.
And that's what we're the same. That's why we're into podcasting.
And some might argue a voice made for newspapers, but it's gratifying that people recognize that we're trying to do that, and they appreciate that we're trying to do that. So I think it can get there can be a point where it gets a little too serious sometimes, and and obviously, you bring to the hobby what you want to bring to the hobby, but and you can discuss what color olive drab is. If you want to start an argument, ask that in a model club. But there's also this, to my mind, it's always still about having a good time while you're doing it.
Yes.
And so, I love the research and I love the history of a vehicle, particularly if it's something that I know has been, used at a particular point in history. I want to know all that stuff, and I want to be sure that what I'm doing is, right for that subject. But at the same time, I don't. If I get to the workbench and I'm like, oh, this is too much work, or whatever, then I'm not in the right frame of mind, I think, to be at the workbench. I'd rather be there and appreciate the fun I'm having.
Right.
So,
it should be fun. Absolutely.
Excellent. Now, one thing I do notice, because I love the fact that you do publish the blooper reels,
right,
on new product rundown.
You and everybody else, Stuart.
Yeah. That's one of the things I like. But I seem to notice that one host over the other seems to always have more of their bloopers done. Is that just because you don't make as many bloopers, or is it because you've got a hand in the editing process?
For the record, I don't do the editing. We actually have a video person that does that. Who our director and shooter Casey Malone
I'm quite happy if you want to plead the fifth. That's fine.
Well, I'd hate to say that either one of us is better than the other one when it comes to that. I will say I write the script, so I'm more familiar with what I've written going into it than Elizabeth might be. So that may be the reason. But I think, Elizabeth is just more infectious to watch making a mistake than I am. So.
Well, she certainly has a lot of fun, and she obviously doesn't mind for all the stuff you end up doing.
Yeah.
So I think
we definitely have to get her on.
Yeah, we'll get her on because
sure.
I think we're part of our Women in Modeling series. Actually, just a quick thing about that. Just I was thinking about this is I suppose that's one of the advantages too over having online as in addition to print only because as we know, you guys tend to have to plan issues several months in advance. So it's kind of nice. I remember years and years ago, something would come out and then it'd be like 4 months later, the traditional media would be covering it. Right. So I suppose that must be nice to be able to, jump on it a little bit earlier.
Yeah, it allows us to get it out in front of the readers and the viewers in a little bit more timely of fashion, and then we can come through with the full build review a couple months later.
Yeah, and that's what I see. You're always saying, there's an upcoming build review and things like that. That's great. Okay, Anthony.
Well, I guess that's a good segue into we got a bit of a doozy here. A couple questions all rolled into one. Just more about what's the balance between sort of working on the new product rundown, like the video production side of it, and then working on articles where you're building something and doing the photographic record or edit, document, mm-hmm. and then you also work on the books, the modeling manuals. So give us a little bit of a picture of kind of how you balance all these different projects and how does your average day look?
Well, I'd love to tell you that all I did all day was stand in the FSM workshop and build models. That's
they have a workshop. Ooh, that's our next question.
We do have a workshop with a spray booth and all kinds of other things. Strangely enough, it's not plumbed for like a sink or anything, so complicates matters slightly. But at least we have a spray booth, and it does allow us to do some stuff here. And I try to get in there when I can. But a goodly portion of my day is actually spent corresponding with readers via email. And then editing stories. The bulk of the magazine is submitted contributions from stories we buy from other people, from authors. So I will be spending time planning issues in conjunction with Mark Savage, the editor of the magazine, and then editing stories from other people, then building. And it's hard for me to give you like a percentage value on a daily basis because it really is a day by day, issue by issue. Yeah. And then the video production, we spend about 4 hours filming an episode. About 45 minutes of that is the actual on-camera stuff with Elizabeth and I. The rest of it is doing the B-roll stuff, all the shots of the sprues and that sort of thing. So,
right. Huh. Wow. There you go. That's a lot of work then, just to pump out one episode.
It's very important. I think I'm sure a lot of people really appreciate seeing all those sprue shots. And all the fine details. Yeah, that's one thing.
I think it helps generate some excitement about the new products. Yeah. I know you really want to see what's it going to look like,
Yeah, that's interesting to see. Yeah,
the same pesos.
And I think it's that at least when I was younger, there was a time when you could walk in and ask the guy at the hobby store if you could look inside a kit.
Yeah,
and he might open it up for you.
Yeah,
they just don't do that anymore. Plus, if you're buying online, you just don't get to see that. You rarely get to see that stuff. So here's a chance to at least here's the things that I think I go back when I'm writing the scripts to what I want to see in the model when I would look at the parts, when I would open up a box and see what was there. What do the parts look like? What do the surface details look like? What does the cockpit detail look like? What sort of tracks does the tank have? And what sort of markings does it come with? Because we all like decals.
Right.
Yes.
So.
No, and I think that's one of the things. I've always been a fan from when you first started doing them. So, okay. Can you tell us a good story that occurred during your time at Comblock? Anything particularly, funny, memorable when you've been there?
I'm not sure if I can pin down a single, amusing anecdote. I think the thing that is at least the most gratifying and the thing I get a lot is just hearing from readers and people who appreciate what we do, and in particular, if they respond to a specific thing that you've written about a technique, they tell you, oh yeah, I used that and it was great, it was perfect, you guys really helped me out with this problem I was having. I think that's the thing that I get more than anything. And the other thing that I think has been fun is I've done a couple things where I built something for the magazine, and I get a call from somebody who was associated with the actual vehicle.
Oh, that's cool.
And they contact you and say, hey, I've served on that. I was the mechanic on that Sabre, or
Nice.
I built a model for actually my human resources director's grandfather was a Navy veteran, and I built his ship for her to give to him. And that was getting that association, getting to meet the people associated with that is just really gratifying.
Any crazy or weird fan mail? You mentioned that you do a lot of the corresponding. Any odd something funny to make us laugh?
I really wish I had something that was funny. It's a lot of what we do. We get more, the fan mail is less mail and more people walking up to you at shows and so forth and talking to you.
Yeah.
And passing on just how much they appreciate what you've done or something you said, or in particular the bloopers at the end of the episodes. That seems to be the universal thing. If I had $1 for every time somebody said, you guys need to do a whole episode of just bloopers.
Well, you know what? So you and I know this, but that dates from back with Burt Reynolds and Dom DeLuise,
right,
when they first did it in Cannonball Run.
Yep.
And my
that was the first outtakes.
Yeah, well, they did it at the end. My co-host hasn't seen that movie yet.
I
scolded him last week about that. He's added
or Cannonball
that to
Run.
his list.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, you haven't seen that. You haven't seen that. So yes, we still have to educate the young ones.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay, go ahead, sir.
So how about any? We're always discussing all the different trends and things that are happening, new techniques, new tools. So what are some of the changes and trends that you've witnessed or noticed over your career in the hobby? And did you happen to foresee any of them come as they came up?
I wish I could say yes. I think if there's anything that's been a trend, if you will, and it probably started before I got to fine scale, it's the explosion of finishing and weathering techniques.
Yes.
For a long time it was dry brushing and washes, and that was pretty much what you did. And now there's color modulation, there's pre-shading, there's post-shading, there's mapping, it's this dictionary long list of terms that we use for ways to finish things. And with that, the explosion in the supplies to make it easier for you to do those things. It's not that most of us can't mix a wash, but the fact that there's a pre-made wash or a pre-made filter or something,
it's convenience.
It makes it convenient. And since most of us have a limited amount of time to be at our workbenches, it just means you can probably get the results you're looking for faster.
Exactly.
Yeah, that seems to be the struggle or the challenge, is to try and get through these things faster.
Right. And because we all like to finish a model once in a while, so at least show our spouses that all that time in the workbench is worth the time.
Absolutely.
So
that's the dream.
Just kind of a similar thing. What's been the most unexpected thing or trend in the modeling world you've come across? Anything you can think of?
Yeah, I don't know that any of them are surprising. I think if anything, it's just the kind of going back to what we talked about, the explosion in both the techniques and the kits available. I think that's one of those things that I would not have foreseen a few years ago, but it's just it's exploded in a way that I would, it's good for the modeling press because it gives us something new to talk about all the time. There's always time
right,
and there are so many creative people out there in the modeling world that are coming up with ways to do things that just every time I see one, I'm like, well, I would have never thought of that. The seeing something and going, I can use that to do this.
Yeah.
It's going back to the old days of who was the first person who thought using a floor polish to gloss coat, a model was something you could do.
Exactly.
And now it's time.
And a holy war was born.
Yes. Well, but I'm not even going to get into that one.
No.
It's interesting though. Like who would look to that to figure out like, oh yeah, I'm gonna coat my model in floor polish and just see what happens.
See what happens.
And
well, and that's the thing I say. Every time when I go to a show, there's at least one or two subjects that just blow me away, just with the creativity or how they did something or a completely different way of looking at it, and that's always neat too in the hobby. Being able to see something like that.
Are there any? Is there anyone in particular that you follow for inspiration, or you look forward to hearing their new ideas or projects?
I don't know that there's any one specific person. There are several people whose models I can recognize at shows now, whose work I really appreciate, and they inspire me to kind of look at, particularly dioramas, which I think is one of those things a lot of us dream of doing.
Yeah.
But I'm lucky if I can get a half decent display base to go on my model, because it's half the time it's moving on to whatever's the next thing on the workbench.
Right.
Yeah.
But there are some guys out there. Greg Seelar's one of them, whose work just blows me away every time I see it, because he has this way of turning things on their head vertically, which is really challenging to the eye and makes you look at stuff and go, "This is just amazing." There's a number of modeling luminaries out there whose work is always worth looking at. So.
That's awesome.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay. We were gonna almost wrap this up.
Sure.
Yep.
So where do you see the hobby in 5 to 10 years? I ask everyone. This is something we ask everyone.
Sure. No, my crystal ball's a little dusty.
That's all right.
It probably needs a good dip in future, actually. But I think it's going to continue to evolve as it always has. I think it's always fun to remember that when this thing started, it was, here's a toy you can build, and it became a hobby with some and then became almost an art form. There are people out there who are doing stuff that is like art in 3 dimensions, and I think we're going to continue to see that. And I think the challenge is always going to be, how do we get new people, and I don't necessarily mean kids, but if you've got a 20-something who's through with university and through with their military service and is settled and has a young family or something and is looking for something to do, that's your ideal market these days. That's that person who's got some money to spend and might have might have a passing interest in the subject matter, and now you can get him or her turned on to what it is that we do and get them involved. And hopefully they go on to give the next generation that link.
Mm-hmm.
And we hinted at, we talked about earlier about how World War II is kind of a little bit of a distant memory. Please don't send the pictures out. There's Iraq, Afghanistan, Bosnia, places like that are much more in people's visions now, at least in North America.
Yep.
And so I think that's something I've told this story before, but I had built some models. The thing that got me permanently hooked on modeling was Star Wars.
Really interesting.
I was 7 years old. My mom took my sister and I to see the first movie, and it's like, man, this is amazing. This is so cool. And then here come these model kits, and I built all 4 of the original NPC kits in that first year or so.
Yep.
And it was loving the subject matter and then loving the process of building that got back to the hobby store and back to the idea of building stuff. I love history, and I've always loved history. So getting to build, a Spitfire is not much different than building R2-D2. It's just, gluing stuff together.
Mm-hmm.
And it's getting that. So if you can get somebody in there who loves something pop culture related, that gets them in the door. If you can get them into Gundam and they get into the hobby store, then maybe they get interested in something else. Maybe their next gateway is to Machine and Krieger, and that gets them back to what Maschinenkrieger is inspired by, which is World War II stuff. So
Yeah.
I think that's the thing, but it's getting people to see how much fun what we do is that I
Right.
think is the crucial thing. I
Yeah.
think if we do that, then 5 to 10 years, it's as good as it is now.
That'll be a new golden age.
I'm gonna go out on a limb here. Is there any plans that Fine Scale Modeler is planning in the future? Anything you can share with us?
Wow, man, you really are just digging.
I know. I just thought, what the heck?
Digging deep.
What the heck? The worst you can say is sorry. I can't say anything.
Yeah, top secret.
We have some stuff in the works that I think is exciting. I wish I could tell you more.
That's okay.
But stay tuned to finescale.com and your local email newsletter, and you'll see what's coming when we can announce it.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
I did have one follow-up question.
Sure.
Aaron, you mentioned when you're talking about sort of new modelers, you mentioned specifically him or her, right?
Right.
And certainly we're just casually seeing more women enjoying the hobby alongside us. And you're out there and you're at different shows and different places. What are you seeing in terms of like women being interested and so on? You must be seeing some changes.
There's some. I think it is becoming more diverse in that direction. If you've been at Wonderfest, you know that show in particular is seems to draw a larger percentage of
it's way more balanced.
Female builders.
Yeah.
And even at smaller shows now, we'll tag models and be, interested to see how many of them are female modelers when they come up. I think it's subject matter related to a degree too. We cover the MMSI show in Chicago every October, which is let me see if I can get this right. Military Miniature Society of Illinois. It was Shep Payne's club.
Yeah.
Yes, that's right.
And its main focus is figures, and that show attracts probably 30% of the entrants. 25 to 30% are female.
Wow. That sounds like a really good number.
Yeah, so I think
compared to other shows.
Sure, and I think it's again, it's getting people interested and showing them that it's more than just, man, I love tanks, I want to build a tank. It's about the art of doing it, and I think that gets people interested in a way that just the vehicles might not get them interested in.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's an interesting insight. And for our I want to sneak in another question.
Paul. He's bad for this.
Yeah, we were talking a little bit about time pressures, and I was just curious, like now that you have these scheduled builds that you have to do for Fine Scale magazine articles. Like what would the is there a typical time frame where they hand you something and they say you got to do this, you need some photo and some text and description about it? How quickly do you have to work?
It depends a little bit on where we're at in the workflow, but typically it'll be 2 to 3 months. Sometimes it's shorter, and since procrastination is a personal problem for me, it can sometimes be a little shorter. I always thought I did better on tests if I waited to study till the night before, or if I wrote a paper the night in a night.
I know that's
genius at that point in time.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, paint doesn't
no
dry as quickly as ink in a laser printer for your term paper. So.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right. So we're just going to wrap this up with our traditional last question. What's on your bench currently?
Your bench is, you got a workbench at home or a bench at office?
We'll actually say we'll be nice. We'll say your home bench.
Okay. Oh, well, things move between both benches, so there's not really there's not a separation there. We'll do it this way. For work projects right now, I've got an Italeri B25G, which I think is the old Accurate Miniatures.
Yes.
Mitchell, the Strafer with the 75 in it. Trumpeter's 700 scale USS Ticonderoga.
Oh, nice.
Because I like to challenge myself by building something that small. and ships are not my not my comfort zone.
Okay.
They're just above figures in my.
Too much fiddly photo etch. That's what I find.
Yes, I have a love-hate relationship with photo etch.
Oh, so do I. So do I. Yes.
I'm getting ready, or I just got started doing Polar Lights. How much time do you have? Polar Lights.
Oh,
big,
keep going.
the big Klingon Katinga.
Oh, yes.
okay.
Yes. We've seen a couple of our members have that.
Is that the D7?
That's the D7. Are you doing the lighting kit with it, Aaron?
Yeah, it's the movie version of the D7, and I do have the lighting kit to go in it. So more challenges.
And also, just to age yourself, that movie's 40 years old this year.
I know.
The motion picture.
Yeah, I know. Okay, sorry. Continue.
Great movie, or not? Sorry, not a great movie, but great ships that came out.
Exactly.
Oh yeah, everyone loves that. The refit, right? Came out of that film.
Yeah.
And you get like 15 minutes of starship porn at the beginning of the movie.
Yeah,
so.
exactly. Very much so.
And I've got Lando's Millennium Falcon from Solo underway.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, cool.
Getting ready to start painting Airfix's Hawker Hunter.
That's a nice looking kit. I've got the Academy boxing, the older one, but I'm looking forward to that one. Yeah,
it's a cherry, man. It goes together beautifully. Everything fits. It's nice. And then on my personal side, that's all work related stuff. So, and I'm not trying to brag. I'm just
that's okay.
Things get backed up on me here. So yeah,
that's all right. It's a nice problem to have.
Yeah, I've been working on a Zvezda 737-800.
Okay.
That I'm going to do in China Eastern markings because they have peacock down the side. And it's just kind of an impressive scheme. And then Bandai's B-Wing, the 72nd.
Oh, yeah. Very nice.
And if I'm lucky, somewhere along the line, I might finish the Deadpool kit I started.
Okay. Like a figure kit, right?
Yeah. It's some company I've never heard of before, Diamond Select. They do a lot of finished sculptures, but they also do a few kits, and they do this just fun Deadpool kit that I found at Wonderfest of all places. Wonderfest is bad for my wallet.
Anthony
Everyone's
says the same thing when he goes.
Now that's
it's
where
on
I
our
think
bucket list.
We met at Wonderfest.
Yeah, it's on our bucket list. I want to get down there at some point.
Yeah,
because I find I'm changing too. Like I used to build a lot more of the historic, but I'm finding my favorite scale used to be 72nd, but as I get older, I swear they're making things smaller. It's not my eyesight getting worse. So I'm moving to the 48th. I don't have room for the 32nd. Sure. But yeah, I'm finding, thanks to Mr. Goodman here, I'm getting into some of the more of the sci-fi things
tickling
and stuff like
your
that.
Science fiction bone a little bit.
So at some point we'll get there. Well, Aaron,
you should. It's worth it. It's a fun show.
Oh yeah. Yeah, no, I've got a few. I've actually got the Hawk from Space 1999, the reissue. That'll probably be next in the queue.
Okay.
That would go very well on the table at Wonderfest.
That would go very well, yeah.
For sure.
Well, Aaron, we really want to appreciate you joining us tonight. It's been an absolute pleasure to hear
thanks for asking.
Some of the stuff behind the scenes. And, and as we say, we absolutely love all the videos and all the stuff, Fine Scale Modeler's doing.
It's a classic.
For the industry. It is, and it's great to see, the YouTube channel and you folks having just an absolute ball.
Yeah, I wish you continued success with the magazine and the video series and all the different builds you're working on.
All right.
Well, thanks for you guys doing what you're doing, because it helps get new people maybe who might just be wandering through Stitcher and come across the podcast. So.
Well, exactly. Well, we're also good friends with those Australian guys.
The on the benchers.
Yeah, we're planning to do hopefully in January. David's coming up here to the Toronto area, which is only 2 hours away. So we're hoping to do a combined show. So that should be fun as well. But yeah, no, we're good friends with them as well, and they've got a good bunch as well. So okay, well, thank you again, Aaron. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Well, that was just a fantastic interview with Aaron Skinner. That was really good. Yeah. Nice thing to hear behind the scenes.
He's a great guy.
Yeah, and it was interesting, some of the stories with the publishing and stuff like that.
Yeah, you get to see a little bit of a snapshot of the life of a professional modeler.
Exactly, and how the publishing industry survives. in this modern era. Okay, moving on to talking tools, one of my personal favorites. And
that's my favorite too.
yeah, I know. I know of two manufacturers, both Tamiya and Mr. Hobby, but I originally bought Tamiya. So these are the Tamiya paint stirrers. So these are little tiny, I don't know, about the size of a cocktail stick, maybe longer. They're made of metal. They've got a flat part on one end, almost like the flat end of a screwdriver. And on the other end, you have a little tiny, almost like what, a measuring cup little thing?
It's almost like a scoop.
A scoop, right. So these are really good for mixing your paint, but also for taking said paint out of the jar and putting it into your mixing cup or your airbrush cup. And you
I love these things. I use them all the time.
Yep.
I've been using them for years.
Exactly. Now, the ones I have from Tamiya have a slightly larger scoop. The ones from Mr. Hobby have a slightly narrower one. So I use those ones when I use my little Sotar airbrush, when I sometimes just need a little bit of paint, and you can get exactly what you need. Dirt cheap. You can get them almost anywhere that carries Tamiya supplies.
Yeah. If I remember correctly, they come in a 2-pack for the Tamiya version.
Mm-hmm.
And I swear it's under $10. And maybe we'll have to dig up a link for our listeners, but I swear I mix every jar of paint.
Yep.
I use those stir sticks, and I even to pour them too. I'll touch that flat edge to the glass when I'm pouring. It kind of keeps it a nice stream. So basically, every time I model and I'm painting, I use that tool. So that's an indication.
So actually, Tamiya's got them. Actually, they have the narrower ones. Sorry, it's Mr. Hobby does the bigger ones. I mixed the two up. So yeah, Tamiya USA on their website, they have a 2-pack for MSRP of $625 US. So yeah,
so there you go.
Yeah. Yeah.
What a useful tool. I use them. I use them in other ways. Nothing comes to mind exactly, but I know I use them for their not intended purpose quite often. I will take them out to do something with them.
Oh, really? This is curious.
I can't really think of but I know I've often taken them to still pry something apart because they have that nice flat edge.
Because I think we should maybe ask the viewers, reply once we post the episode. What do you think Anthony uses his stir sticks for?
Other than stirring paint, which I use all the time.
Polite answers only, please.
It's a family show.
It's folks. A family show. I don't want to hear about ear picking or anything like that. Thank you. All right, moving on. What's on the bench? Hey, I started something new. Nice. I'm working on the Bandai Super Star Destroyer in 1 to 100,000 scale. This thing, because the real thing's supposedly 19 kilometers long.
Wow.
So 1 to 100 scale brings it back to about 11 or 12 inches. Very easy build, but I've posted a simple photo gallery to blackfire.ca, and I'll throw the link up there too. The molding on this thing, because again, you got to realize this is like a city in space, and it's got lots of little levels and stuff like that. The molding on this for Bandai, we've talked about it before.
You did bring it. You brought it in. I think the last time we recorded an episode, and it was just beautiful.
Absolutely
really
amazing.
Crisp detail.
Oh, so I shot some pictures. I used the iPhone and I zoomed it up to 10, and the individual little details, like by some of the engine areas, it's just unbelievable, just absolutely unbelievable. So I'm being very careful painting it. So what I've got a primer coat on so far, and then the main hull is going to be like a gray, and then I'm going to use something darker with a lot of washes for like the middle section, like where all the city blocks are, as people call it. In that. So yeah, nice simple build, and then I'm not sure what I'm going to do next, but yeah, it's just nice to just do this. There hasn't been a ton of time still, a lot of other stuff happening in real life, but yeah, I love these little Bandai ships. They're just, again, simply amazing. It's as someone who never built a lot before, I can see why everyone raves about them. So yeah,
Bandai's really a leader in engineering, I think.
Yeah, exactly.
From what I've seen.
Very, 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 very much so. And I have to thank Peter Fay from Neo Tokyo, a member of our club. He was the one that when I went into the store one day, he said, "Oh yeah, we got something new. Check this out." So yeah, I have him to blame or thank or whatever. So it's looking pretty good. So a shout out to him. Okay, Mr. Goodman, what are you working on these days?
Oh, I've been busy. So
You have.
I just wrapped up the Aliens APC build and been getting a lot of great feedback on it.
Holy
It's incredible.
cow. The amount of feedback, folks, on this kit is just, if you haven't had a chance, check it out. We'll throw some more pictures up, but just, he's done a beautiful job.
Yeah, I'm really pleased with the way it turned out. It's just it's sort of, and the response is really just sort of blowing my mind. I mean, I think a couple things are at play. It was sort of a very iconic iconic kit, I guess, or design. It's such a popular movie, Aliens, and I think that kit's been around for, obviously it's long out of print, but it's been around for a while, so people are kind of familiar with it. And I just can't believe all the sort of compliments that are coming in and likes and shares and all that stuff. It's really awesome.
Well, you even got some awesome compliments. Our friends at On the Bench kind of led off with that.
Yes, thank you, guys. I do appreciate that, and it's really nice. I mean, I did put a lot of effort into that, and I did sort of cross a few barriers kind of for the first time.
Yeah,
so
again, great.
I'm really happy. It was a dog of a kit too.
Oh, I know.
Halcyon did not. Like they got those licenses to do those cool movie subjects, but maybe they were novice at engineering kits, but it was tough and needed a lot of
everyone
TLC,
says that.
for sure.
You've done a really good job. So what else are you working on?
So yeah, I've got that out of the way right now, and you, the keen listeners may remember that we talked about a new series that we were going to do for the Scale Model podcast called the In-Depth Report.
Yes,
and
indeed.
so work has begun.
Yep.
So what we're going to do is we're going to do a series sort of showcasing the building of this super rare Macross Valkyrie kit. It's a 1/100 VF-19A Excalibur Valkyrie.
Mm-hmm.
And we're also going to do some videos on resin construction, outlining some tips and that process so people can see as we go along. And this is going to be, I think, released to our Patreons sort of episode by episode first, and then later on to the general public. So I've started work on that, and Stuart is graciously assisting me. So I've got just the prep work going for the Valkyrie. And the Mooseru Cup is still alive. I did glue the back end onto the 68 Shelby.
There we go, boys. Progress.
Prime the interior. So that is another dog of a kit.
I know, but that's fine. It's good for you.
Is it?
It's like
it feels
it's
bad.
like taking your Buckley's cold medicine, which is a Canadian cold medicine.
I just did all that with the Halcyon kit.
I know. So see, you should be all set. The boys will be pleased.
Oh my goodness. So yeah, it's looks like a car now, but it's got a really weird kind of plastic to it. I don't know how to describe it, but like the plastic on the Halcyon kit was brittle. Like chunks of it would just snap away.
Yeah.
And I would rebuild it with sheet stock, right? This plastic is a little bit kind of weird too, but anyway, it is coming. And the deadline really is when Dave shows up.
Yes, because Dave's planning a trip to Canada, so you got to get it done by like early February, or else he will mock you mercilessly. Yeah. Exactly.
And it will happen.
It will happen, definitely.
And I've still got my... I haven't mentioned this in a long time. My Malaysian IFV from Bosnia, that was sort of near completion, and it kind of got set aside while I did the Aliens APC, and now I'm working on these other projects. But I just been doing a little bit of work on getting the base together and working on some kit for the soldiers, the crew that are going to be in the vignette.
Excellent. Alrighty, so that's cool. Okay, almost done here. We're moving on to sites and tips. I don't know about the rest of the world, but Netflix Canada had a new documentary movie called Spitfire, the Plane That Saved the World. I think it was released last year. If you haven't seen it and you get a chance to, and if you're even a partial fan of World War II aircraft, check this one out. I finished watching it last night. Absolutely amazing.
Sounds awesome.
Beautiful camera work. Beautiful camera work. They've got a little bit of a history. One of the really cool things is towards the end, they had because during the war, what happened was they actually had ladies would fly these from the factories to the frontline airfields, and to free up men for being fighter pilots. So they were actually interviewed one. She was 99. She was still alive. She's passed away since, sadly. But she flew something, I'm trying to remember, I'm going to screw it up. 400 or 4,000. Anyway, a huge amount of aircraft over the years, and the majority of them being Spitfires, all different types. One of them, she decided near the end of the war, as a whim, she decided to sign her name on the inside railing of the cockpit. Well, as it turns out, this exact same aircraft is still around and flying. So they actually had the aircraft come in, and she got to re-sign her name on it. It was just absolutely amazing.
Wow,
it's in private hands, and it's beautifully redone. But yeah, just the cinematography, the history behind it is absolutely fantastic. Really, really good. So, well recommend it. Again, Netflix Canada has it. I'm sure if you check your local Netflix, if you're in different countries, hopefully they'll have it as well, or you can find it at a library. I'm sure you can order it. But yeah, well worth the viewing. There's nothing like a sound of a Rolls-Royce, Merlin, or Griffin engine, and you get that in absolute spades here, shall we say. All right.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing it.
Yeah, and you have one more sights and tips as well.
Yeah, just earlier we were talking about the Moscato Hobbies, the Quaidlin Rao update with all the cool commentary and behind-the-scenes photos. So we posted the link. It's to his Facebook link, but you can have a look. It's really neat. He kind of talks about some of the tools he's using to create this model master.
Right.
So it's very cool if you're interested in kind of how those models are put together and how they're designed.
Yeah, exactly. John's always very good with doing that. So yeah, definitely well worth checking that out. So yeah, I think that's about it. I do want to just give out one shout out and to our good friend of the podcast, Ray Davis, down in Sydney. Australia, they're dealing with a lot of brush fires, just as bad as California, if not worse.
Yes.
And I know Ray's been posting some stuff. He's quite busy. He's a volunteer with the fire service down there. So we wish good prayers and hope for rain and all that stuff. Because our friends down there, they're having a heck of a time.
Yeah. Stay safe, everybody.
Yeah. Same thing in California. Similar situations. So yeah, definitely stay safe. And as always, speaking of Australia, if you want another fix on the weeks we don't air, check out On the Bench. Just do a search on the On the Bench podcast, and the three guys there, Dave, Julian, and Ian, are always good, always up for good stories and some interesting stuff. You'll always learn something as well, and they're good friends of us and vice versa. So check them out as well. So don't forget to subscribe. Let us know if you have any comments or suggestions. We love mail. We love viewer mail. scalemodelpodcast@gmail.com. We do have the Facebook page at facebook.com/scalemodelpodcast. And as we've talked about, we also have a Patreon page. Really appreciate your support. We also have a YouTube channel, and I've been bad. I haven't been posting the episodes, so I'm trying to play catch up there. So if you'd rather listen to us on YouTube, I think I'm up to episode 27 or 28. So I'm almost caught up. But as we post to the podcast feeds, we'll also post to YouTube, and you can get your podcast goodness there if that's the way you prefer as well. And you can reach us at on YouTube. Just do a search there as well. So I think that's it for this show. Do you have anything else, Anthony?
That's it for me.
That's it for you. So, okay, on this wintry Canadian evening for the Scale Model Podcast, my name is Stuart Clark.
And I'm Anthony Goodman.
Thank you, and be well.